Okay, welcome to Get Serious. Let's jump back into my notes from the $100 million money model launch affiliate Hormozi event. Again, 11 straight hours with Alex Hormozi. Life-changing event. Never taken more notes at any event besides this one. So. If you want more of the additional takeaways and, overall first impressions, I did, some thoughts on that on previous podcasts. This probably won't be the last podcast either. So just to jump back into the follow-on lessons here. Again, the setup, if you hadn't listened to those previous pods, was that most of the day was spent within, 10 fireside chat sessions with the top 10 affiliates, getting one-on-one time with Alex, and then there was probably close to 3 hours ish of just audience open mic time. We had to submit questions before, so just a grab bag of just Q&A to Alex. With all that in mind, I'm jumping back into notes here from some of these fireside chats. One of these key questions was, again, a number of the entrepreneurs there, like we were in pretty similar setups of it's that really that $1 to $3 million swamp range, like top line revenue between like $1 to $3 million. Like there's so many of us there, including myself, where a number of businesses are just able to grind their way to numbers like that, which is like not easy to do. Again, most businesses fail within their first year and get nowhere close to even sniffing $1 million. So you have to pat yourself on the back to even get to that level. But to get beyond there, because it's right at that level where it's like, hey, you've proven that you can be a small business operator, you can be an entrepreneur and be able to kind of sustain the business and probably support yourself enough with, assuming you're running at least, 15 to 20% net profit on that business. It's probably enough to at least support yourself and your family at a minimum. And so, at that level, it's like, okay, you made it, but in order to get to the next level, what really needs to change in order to push past the boundaries and push past the swamp to get to that next level? Part of that is just psychological too, because like I just mentioned, it's like, okay, you've done enough to kind of prove yourself as a business operator. But as Alex was saying, it's just, there's so many folks who get stuck right around there, or even, more than likely less than $1 million is because, they found something that has started to work. So they don't want to let that go and, don't want to deal with, what human really just loves just uncertainty we hate it, right? It's just, look at when there's tons of uncertainty in the air, look what happens to the stock market, the economy, everybody starts to tighten up when you're not sure where the shoe is going to drop. And so it's just easier to stay, or, for those entrepreneurs at that level, it's just easier to stay where they are at. It's okay, I've got something comfortable going here. I know I could be doing more, but I really don't want to risk what's already working. So that's why a lot of folks will get stuck. And, this comes back to that main constraint theory of, again, the six, the Hormozi six, where why can't you be doing more of, various parts of your business? Again, are you tracking metrics properly? Is your market okay? Your model? Are you solving the money issue, which again is related to leads, sales, or LTV, lifetime value of the customer, and then a manpower issue. One of those is your core constraint. And so it's to get to that, $10 million number or beyond, you have to be able to focus at least 80% of your time on that main constraint. Just let the other fires burn and just keep pushing to solve that main constraint. That's the only way you're going to be able to get past that swamp and get past that level. You can't just, again, we all hear the quotes, what got you here won't get you there. But few people will actually embody that and be able to take that extra step further, because it's just, it introduces uncertainty. You might not make it. That's just part of entrepreneurship, right? It's just a constant sprint. You say it's a marathon, but it's you kind of have to be sprinting for the most part. To really get off the ground, a long time and find other routes to move forward. Like it's not easy to solve the game of business. Like people can say, yeah, it's easier to be in business nowadays compared to like in the past for whatever reason. Like you didn't have the internet, you didn't have the reach, or you had to host your own website and it costs like 10, 15 grand a month just to do that. So like there's a lot of rationale. It's like, yeah, it's never been easier or simpler rather to be an entrepreneur and a business owner. And that part I could agree with. But at the same time is that the game, it like infinitely evolves, right? Because tomorrow is a step forward than today and compared to yesterday and so forth. And like, even killer business operators from 50 years ago, like, how many of them just fell off, or like those, business strategies aren't going to be as applicable today just because the game keeps leveling up and you have to have such a, more solid base of knowledge and wisdom just to succeed and continue to earn money anyway. So like there's just inevitable uncertainty. You're going to have to continue to grow and face that in order to get to the next step. So I really like that piece. And then, this is like such critical insights for me personally as well. And there's so many entrepreneurs there. There's just like, again, a lot of us are just visionaries, and, I think just part of being a business owner and entrepreneur especially is like inevitably taking on more than we can reliably do, or we always think we have more capacity than we don't. Like that's just part of what's, allowed us to kind of pursue a crazier life path anyway. And so many folks who were at this event were just, hey, I have an agency here, but then I'm also coaching, other, like I have a coaching business that's helping coach other agencies to get bigger. Or, so some of these folks, like I can start another software product around what we're doing here. Like that's just another avenue that we can pursue. We see the potential for just, continuing to expand our reach. And, critically, and yeah, there was just there were a number of entrepreneurs both within the fireside chats and it's like the open mic that were just dealing with things like that. Just a ton of different examples, which I'll skip over for the sake of speed here. And what Alex really pointed out, and like anybody who's listened to Alex for even a small amount of time, like you just say, like focus, like it's the number one thing. Like that's what he has to keep reminding himself of constantly as well. He has a huge list of just big ideas that I just can't pursue because it's going to destroy like their main route of business. And yeah, you could point to like Alex where he had, the gym launch company, then he had supplements, and he had the software related to gym operators. And it's like, well, yeah, you did multiple businesses. And he's like, yeah, but like that's not necessarily a recommended pet. Like he's like, if I had just focused on that one business, like just focus on gym launch, like the exit probably would have at least been the same, maybe bigger, by just focusing on one. And like most people who have run multiple businesses, like either say they have regretted doing that, even if they have exited out of it, or like it just inevitably kind of caps their longer term potential because they're just balancing between building more than one business, and you just have to like jump from one to the other to put out fires as they came up. And related to this, because like sometimes it's a fine line, right? It's like, okay, is there just two or more different product lines within your business? Which is fine because it's like, yeah, you want multiple bites at the apple to earn revenue, or is it like two unrelated businesses? So, a way to break it down, I mean, first within like our funding business here, Slant Capital, like we could have regular, funding deals. We're taking down 100% of the capital, the equity in the deal, split profits on the back end. Sometimes we'll do some transactional funding as well too. Like that's it's a different product, but it's within our, core competency, our core business. Like it doesn't, really shift our marketing or our sales channels to like bring those same type of leads. It's just another way to make money with a different type of product or service that we're offering here. And so like Alex will mention this, like, hey, you really have to ask yourself, like, do the activities of each product line change your day-to-day operations? And so he'll, he was mentioning in some of his businesses where it's like, yeah, they had, a bunch of affiliate products that was earning them a good amount of income, but like they built it into their primary core core offer checkout process. And I think he's remarked about this in some of his books, where he's like, he had an employee, as they were closing sales for their core offer, they would have this employee just like walk the client, the new client, through all of their affiliates, like, yeah, if you're going to sign up for this, then like it makes sense to do this and this and this. And so to like walk them through the clicks, and based on that conversion cycle, the money earned from that was already paying for that employee, fortunately. So you turn a loss center into a profit center. And like it doesn't change the operations. Like they're still closing their main product, so they can throw that piece on because it's all within the flow of day-to-day operations. Whereas Alex is like, but the difference between like product lines and other businesses, like if you have a totally separate marketing channels, sales channels, different customer avatars, that's where it starts like getting a lot riskier. And it's just like, he's like, it's just frankly out of reach for 99% of people to be able to successfully pull that off. And I think so many of us like get this in our heads, because it's like, okay, when you think of, regardless politics, whatever, but like, the larger than life personality, like a lot of folks will point to Elon. It's like, oh yeah, CEO of SpaceX and Tesla and Neuralink and, X. So it's like, yeah, somebody can do it there, the richest man in the world. So, but, it's like, do you know anybody else who has done like anything like that? He's kind of like a one of one. And we know there's like, you got to take the whole package with that. Like, do you want that lifestyle? Like, really, would you trade your spots with Elon to like, again, not a judgment on the lifestyle. It could be for you, but like to have, multiple different, failed relationships, seemingly, not seeing kids, like a whole bunch, like it's like a whole, and seemingly like just difficult personal relationships, professional one, like it's a lot, right? Like not everybody would sign up for that. And so you have to be willing to take the full package if you even had the capability. And so far we haven't seen anybody like they people think they can be Elon, but like so far there's only been one Elon, right? Whereas like even if you look at all the other biggest companies out there, that have just infinite resources. Like, Zuck has stuck with Meta, Bill Gates and then Ballmer. So like they just focused on Microsoft. Bezos, like it was just Amazon, right? Like they picked one thing with literally trillions of dollars at this point. And they stay focused on one company, even with, Hormozi here too. Like, again, way more resources than we can ever imagine. Like he is just focused on acquisition.com. It's not multiple businesses, but they have multiple product lines. Like they'll have their private equity set up, they'll have their venture capital, but even that, it's like delegated out to the right teams so that it doesn't require as much split focus from Alex himself, to where, like the VC phase, like he just, hey, here's, I think like $2 million a year or something is what those grants, like, yeah, just, hey, he delegated this out, give it to companies you think are going to do well, great. There's a real estate arm which like they'll look at like $50 to $60 million type properties, and Alex will get involved at the very end for like approval on that. I mean, huge purchases, but it's like arms of the business that are looking at different assets, like it's a whole in investment firm, right? So but they're just focused on their one core business, because like all the product lines all have some relation to each other, or they're able to delegate out to certain departments to really make sure that that they're aligned there. So I thought that was just exceptionally helpful to keep in mind, because like it's just I make that mistake all the time, and a number of other operators will do so as well. Clearly that was the case at this live live event. And again, to wrap up this fireside chat here, again, we're going a little lot like, again, is this good content? Like you can comment on this. Like you want to hear more, like this was 11 straight hours with Alex Hormozi, right? Like it's jam packed with valuable business knowledge. And so, the other piece that I noted down related to this topic, again, within that like $1 to $3 million swamp typically. And, so many people are like, yeah, they want to remove themselves more from the business. I'd scale, get the passive income. And so it's just not realistic for most businesses. Like if you are a sub $10 million business, like Hormozi routinely put this out, it's like, you are the talent. Like until you get to that level, like it's it's very hard to recruit star talent below that type of top line revenue, assuming kind of like standard. Every industry is different, but like assuming again, you're getting at least like 15-20% net margins, like a good amount of gross profit, obviously, hopefully like north of 70 to 80% of gross margin on a business like this. And you still need to get to like 10 mil top line, even with that in mind, to like really hire star players who can continue to grow the business that it's going to require at levels like that to get to those higher stages. And yes, there's always the avenue. Yeah, you could raise capital, or maybe you just have a whole bunch of cash reserves that you could afford to hire star talent that isn't just being, bootstrapped from the company. But again, if you look at the stats, like there's bare handful of companies that like ever raise earlier startup capital, like well below 10%, maybe below 5%, a lot of folks aren't just sitting on hundreds of thousands, billions of dollars, like unless you've already been successful before and all that. And so that's entirely possible. You can do that. Sort of reason, the VC system and accelerators and all that exists, but like most folks are bootstrapping. So if you're doing that, you've just got to sit tight and like build a larger business before you can take a step back and, be more passive with it. Like that's just the reality. And, and that's part of the swamp too, right? Like it's just, if you have limited margin, it's like, you either have to work a lot harder yourself to get to that $10 million level so you can hire more star talent, or you have to give up like almost all of the profit you're bringing in to bring in star talent to get to the next level. That's why so many people get stuck in the swamp, because you get stuck between that rock and hard place that's really, really difficult to push out of. But, at these higher levels, like if you can start attracting real stars here, real A-level talent, like Alex has pointed out, is that, stars stick around. Like they, stars and A-level players, like they will keep tabs. Maybe it's not necessarily publicly, but they will pay attention. Okay, hey, here's somebody building something really cool, or like, yeah, I joined this team and maybe they shifted around, did something else, or maybe like the company exited or failed, whatever. But it's like, hey, there's a good experience here. Like I like working with this team, and like they'll be available, because like once stars figure out that you're a legit player, like they will stick around your orbit, and probably vice versa for kind of the rest of your professional careers. So it's like, but as Alex was pointing out, it's like you really don't know what stars look like until you just work through so many hires and just misfires. Like you kind of, it's a hard skill to teach. It's like every industry is different too, and you're going to have like one bad hire, and then you hire someone else and they're like equally as bad, or 3, 4, maybe 5, and then until you finally found, ooh, this is what an A player looks like. And once you start like figuring out, oh, here's what an A player is for this particular position. It's like it could be different for sales channels versus marketing and so forth. Then you can start pattern matching more over time. You're like, oh, I can recognize this archetype. This is more of an A-level player that I can bring into this type of role, because like I've seen this before. But you just have to like work through a bunch of tough hires that didn't work out in order to sort that out. Like there's no easy way around. Like it's just reps, right? Same with everything. Volume negates luck. So that's what you have to just keep on doing. And like Alex is pointing out, like he, especially on sales channels, like he'll know every single tier of sales, like standard, inbound sales rep to director of sales to VP of sales, etc. Like he just knows what to look for those positions now. Like what does star level talent look like within that hierarchy? And like you only get that by just continuing to make progress. So I think that's a good pause point here. Again, I'm getting so much out of this just by collecting my thoughts around these notes here and repeating them back to you all. I'm going to be listening to these again just personally, so I hope you're getting just as much value, if not more, by tuning in here. Like you just bound to, right? Like I mean, like this is great stuff. Like again, there's a reason Hormozi has made so much money. It's because the guys are super focused and knows what he's talking about. So with that in mind, seriousland.capital for any of your funding needs. Okay, minimum buy price, land daily diligence, Facebook group for zero cost review your land deals. Subscribe and share. I'll be back with more Hormozi notes into this next week here. We'll keep running through it. Take care, everybody. Bye.